Connection born from digital loneliness. Arthur Bennett sat in the worn leather armchair by the window of his small flat in Manchester, the kind of two-bedroom place on the second floor of a red-brick Victorian terrace that had once felt full of life. Now it echoed with silence. Rain tapped against the glass like impatient fingers, the gray November sky pressing down on the city outside. At 80 years old, his hands trembled slightly as he picked up his smartphone, a gift from his eldest son 3 Christmases ago. The screen lit up with the familiar green icon of WhatsApp. 2 new messages. From Michael. Dad, hope you're doing all right. Busy with the new project. Talk soon. From David. Hi, Dad. Kids say hello. We'll call next week. Arthur read them twice, then a third time, as if longer staring might conjure more words, more warmth. His eyes blurred. He set the phone down gently on the side table, next to a faded photograph of his late wife, Margaret, smiling on their wedding day in 1968. A single tear escaped, tracing the deep lines of his cheek before falling onto his woolen cardigan. Loneliness had not arrived suddenly. It had crept in like the damp Manchester chill, seeping through the cracks after Margaret's passing 5 years earlier. The boys, now men in their 50s with careers in London and families of their own, had their lives. Arthur understood. He had worked long hours at the printing factory himself once, providing for them. But understanding did not fill the empty evenings, the quiet meals, or the way the television seemed louder just to keep him company. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and whispered to the empty room, "Just another day, old man." Oh! The next morning, after his usual routine of tea and toast, Arthur opened the old laptop that Michael had set up for him. His fingers, stiff with arthritis, hunted across the keyboard. He wasn't particularly tech-savvy, but the pandemic years had forced him to learn Zoom and Facebook to see his grandchildren. Today, boredom and that deep ache pushed him further. On a whim, he typed his old school into the search bar. St. Mary's Boys' School, Liverpool, 1950s alumni. Pages of results appeared. He scrolled slowly, squinting at the screen. Then a name jumped out at him, Reginald Thompson, Reggie. His best mate from childhood, the one who had shared stolen cigarettes behind the bike sheds, dreamed of becoming a footballer, and later stood as best man at Arthur's wedding. They had lost touch in the 1980s when Reggie moved down south for work. Arthur's heart beat a little faster as he clicked on the profile. The man in the photo looked older, of course, white hair, kind eyes behind spectacles, but it was unmistakably Reggie. Arthur hesitated, then typed a message. "Hello, Reggie, it's Arthur Bennett from St. Mary's. Wonder if you remember me? Been a long time. Manchester these days. Hope you're well." He almost deleted it. What if Reggie didn't remember? What if he thought it was some scam? But Arthur hit send anyway. 2 days later, a reply came. "Arthur Bennett. Bloody hell, mate. Of course I remember you. The lad who could never kick a ball straight but told the best ghost stories. I'm in Bristol now. Widower myself these past 4 years. How the devil are you?" What followed was the first real conversation Arthur had enjoyed in years. They swapped stories about their aches and pains, their children who never visited enough, and the world that seemed to spin too fast. Reggie was 79, still sharp, and recently discovered the joy of this internet malarkey, as he called it. Within a week, they moved to video calls. Arthur would prop his laptop on the coffee table, comb what remained of his hair, and wait for the familiar chime. Their first proper live session was awkward. Reggie's camera angle showed mostly his forehead at first, but laughter soon filled the pixels. "Do you remember when we nicked apples from old Mrs. Hargreaves' garden?" Reggie asked, chuckling. Arthur roared. "And she chased us with a broom. Margaret always said I married her just so I'd have someone to hide behind." They talked for nearly 2 hours. For the first time in ages, Arthur went to bed with a smile. Those live sessions became the highlight of their weeks. Every Tuesday and Friday at 3 p.m., they would connect. Sometimes they shared old photographs scanned on their phones. Arthur showed Reggie a picture of Margaret in her favorite yellow dress. Reggie shared one of his late wife, Eileen, on Brighton Pier. The conversations deepened. They spoke of regrets. Arthur's for working too much when the boys were young. Reggie's for never traveling as much as he'd promised Eileen. They laughed about the music they loved. The Beatles, of course, and how they had queued for hours to see them in Liverpool. One evening, as winter tightened its grip on Manchester, Arthur confessed the depth of his isolation. "Some days, Reggie, I just sit here staring at the walls. The boys message, but it's never more than a line or two. I don't blame them, but God, it hurts." Reggie nodded on the screen, his expression solemn. "Same here, Art. My daughter rings once a fortnight if I'm lucky. We're the forgotten generation, mate. Worked hard, raised families, and now we're supposed to just fade quietly." That night, after they said goodbye, Arthur couldn't sleep. An idea had taken root. By early spring, Arthur had learned more about the internet than he ever thought possible. With Reggie's encouragement and patient guidance over video, he created a private Facebook group, Golden Years Connection, for those who remember. The description was simple: a place for folks over 70 to share memories, have a chat, and remember we're not alone. No politics, no nonsense, just friendship. Arthur posted the first update himself, with Reggie as co-administrator. "Hello, everyone. My name is Arthur Bennett from Manchester. I've been lonely since losing my wife. Recently reconnected with my old pal Reggie here. If you're feeling the same, come join us for a cuppa and a natter. We're starting live story sessions next week." To their astonishment, 20 people joined in the first day, then 50. Within a month, the group had over 400 members from across the UK. Widows from Edinburgh, retired teachers from Birmingham, old sailors from Portsmouth, and factory workers from Leeds. Every Thursday evening, Arthur and Reggie hosted a live video session. At first, it was just the two of them reminiscing. Soon, members requested to join. Mrs. Evelyn Harper from York shared her memories of the Blitz as a child. Mr. George Wilkins from Cardiff sang old Welsh hymns in a surprisingly strong voice. A woman named Dorothy from Cornwall spoke tearfully about her husband who had passed from dementia. Arthur moderated with gentle patience. "We've all got stories," he would say, "and here someone's always listening." The group grew rapidly. News of it spread through local senior centers and church newsletters. By summer, Golden Years Connection had over 3,000 members. Local newspapers ran small features. A kind journalist from the Manchester Evening News interviewed Arthur over the phone. "How does it feel to go from lonely pensioner to community leader?" she asked. Arthur chuckled. "I'm no leader, love. Just an old man who didn't want to die alone in front of the telly." As the months passed, Arthur's health began to decline. His doctor in Manchester spoke of heart issues and the toll of years. The boys visited more often after he mentioned the group. Michael even came up from London for a weekend. But Arthur knew time was growing short. Still, he continued the live sessions from his armchair, oxygen tube discreetly placed when needed. Reggie was always there beside him virtually, cracking jokes to lighten the mood. One particularly emotional evening, with nearly 200 people watching live, Arthur addressed the camera directly. His voice was weaker but steady. "I want to thank every one of you. When I started this, I was just a lonely old fool crying over WhatsApp messages from my sons. Now look at us, thousands of us, spread across the country, sharing laughs and tears. There is loneliness in this world. Terrible, crushing loneliness. But tonight and every night we gather, I am not alone. None of us are." The comments flooded in. "God bless you, Arthur. You've given me a reason to get out of bed in the mornings." "Thank you, Grandad Arthur." Tears streamed down his face as he read them aloud. Whoa! In his final weeks, Arthur rarely left his chair. His sons Michael and David took turns staying with him. Grandchildren visited, filling the flat with noise that warmed his heart. Reggie called every day. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon in late October, with golden leaves falling outside the window, Arthur gathered a small group for one last live session. Only Reggie joined him on camera, the rest watched. Arthur spoke slowly, his breathing labored. "I've lived a good life, loved a wonderful woman, raised two fine boys. And in the end, this silly internet thing brought me back to my best mate and to all of you. Remember this. Pick up the phone, send the longer message, join the group, tell your stories. The years pass quicker than you think." He paused, smiled at the camera. "There is loneliness, but now I am not alone." Those were among his last public words. Arthur Bennett passed away peacefully 3 days later, surrounded by family and with Reggie on a video call until the very end. Whoa! Epilogue. The Golden Years Connection group continued under Reggie's leadership and a team of dedicated moderators Arthur had helped train. It grew to over 20,000 members. Local chapters formed across the UK for in-person meetups. Young volunteers learned to help seniors with technology. Charities took notice and provided funding for devices and training. Michael and David, forever changed by their father's final chapter, made sure to visit their own children more, to send longer messages, to listen. And in Manchester, on a quiet street, a small plaque was placed near Arthur's old flat by the local council, in memory of Arthur Bennett, who turned digital loneliness into human connection. Whoa! Closing. Good luck on your own journey, whatever it may be. If this story touched you, stay on this channel for more heartfelt tales. And don't forget to subscribe for regular updates. You never know Who you reach out to today might just save a life tomorrow. Take care.